Hello again, 8th grade. This video is a follow-up to our first video about carbon. Today we're going to be talking about carbon compounds and how we try to understand and name our carbon compounds. Okay, so let me go over to this tab and we're going to look at this one, almost the simplest carbon compound there is. Scientists name carbon compounds using a prefix and a suffix. So every name they give a hydrocarbon like this is a compound name because it has a prefix and a suffix. The prefixes come from one thing about the molecule, and the suffix tells you something else about the molecule. Okay, so let's start with the prefix. To name a carbon compound like this, you look at first the number of carbons that there is in this substance. So in this one you can see there's two carbons. Two carbons means that this is called, if you look over here, there is a nice list of prefixes. Two carbon atoms means you call this eth something. Eth something. So it starts with meth, then eth, then prop, then bute, then pent, then hex, then hept, then oct, then non, and then des. So this thing, we know, has to do with the prefix eth. But then what are the suffixes that it would go with? So you can see this thing, each carbon, we learned last time, can form 4 bonds. So this carbon is forming 3 bonds with hydrogens and 1 bond with the carbon on this half. So because every single bond in this molecule is only sharing 1 pair of electrons, so it's only a single bond, this thing has the suffix of ane. So A-N-E equals all single bonds. All single bonds means that it would be ane. So if we put in the prefix of eth with the suffix ane, here is what we would call this. We would call it ethane, which you may have heard of before. It's a substance that people can use to, I believe it's pretty flammable. I don't know exactly what it's used for. But let's look at this next one. So this one, just like before, it has 4 carbons. So the prefix to go with this would be 4 carbons, would be bute. So bute plus single bonds all the way around. Single bonds are always ane. So that molecule is butane, which I know you've heard about. The little burners that we have at school run off of butane. It's a very flammable, gaseous substance, and it's used as a fuel. So you can see this is these are some really common compounds that you might not have realized were hydrocarbons before, but they are. So this is ethane, this is butane. What about this monstrosity? Look at this. This is huge. This is a large molecule, a large hydrocarbon. So it has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. It has 8 carbons. So what corresponds to 8 carbons? 8 carbons is oct. Makes sense. Octopus, 8 arms. Octane, or oct, is 8 carbons. Now, here, notice something weird. This thing over here on the left with the 3 lines. Everything else is single bonds. But here, there are 3 lines connecting these 2 carbons. This means that these 2 carbons are sharing 3 pairs of electrons. It is what's called a triple bond. So if you count it, each carbon has 1, 2, 3, 4 lines connecting to it. 1 to the hydrogen, 3 to the carbons. The one in the middle has 3 with the 1 carbon to its left and 1 with the carbon to its right. So they still have 4 bonds, but they're making a triple bond with each other. Triple bonds have a lot of energy because they're sharing a lot of electrons, so they tend to be more unstable. But they are also sharing a lot of electrons. So, okay, triple bonds will make us choose the suffix of "-ine", Y-N-E, at least one triple bond. Now, for this, it doesn't mean like it has to have all triple bonds, like there can't be anything else. It means there is at least one triple bond. If there's any triple bonds at all, it's Y-N-E. Same thing with one double bond. It's E-N-E. So the name for that is oct for 8 plus "-ine for the triple bond. So that the name for that compound is octine. Weird. Okay. So the other thing we need to talk about is the concept of isomers and being saturated. So let's look at this over here. This is a little slide I actually found about unsaturated hydrocarbons. An unsaturated hydrocarbon is a compound that doesn't quite have all of the hydrogens that it could possibly have. So I picked this one because it matches up with the one we saw at the beginning. This one over here, this is a fully saturated hydrocarbon, meaning you can't fit any more hydrogens into this thing. It is full. All the bonds are filled with hydrogen, nothing else. But over here, notice 2 hydrogens are missing. Where'd they go? They have been replaced by the double bond in the middle of this compound. So this is eth for 2 and ene for a double bond. So you can see here, it's the simplest alkene, ethene. Alkenes are all the hydrocarbons with a double bond. So it's the simplest one that you could possibly have. So it's ethene. Okay, so this is what's called an unsaturated hydrocarbon because it could have more hydrogens, but it doesn't. Some of the hydrogens have been replaced with a double bond. So which one of these other ones have been saturated? This is completely saturated because there's no more hydrogens that can possibly be added. But this one is unsaturated because there's been a lot of hydrogens replaced by the triple bond in this huge molecule. So it's unsaturated. Interestingly enough, if you ever go and look at like nutrition labels, sometimes they will give you a number, an amount of unsaturated fat or saturated fat. This is what that's talking about. If you've ever wondered, like, why is it called saturated? It's because of this. Fat molecules are like hydrocarbons. They're based on carbon because they come from life, and they can either be saturated, meaning they're full of hydrogens, there's no double bonds, no triple bonds, or they could be unsaturated. Unsaturated fats are actually better for you because they can be more easily broken down by your body. Because, like I said earlier, triple and double bonds are more unstable. So they're easier for your body to snap apart and break down big molecules like this, which is what all fats are. They're really large hydrocarbon molecules. They store a lot of energy. So octine, ethene, these things store a lot of energy in their bonds. But they can also be very difficult to break down unless you have a lot of heat, which is what flames will do for you. There's one more thing here. So, okay, isomers. We forgot isomers. An isomer is something is 2 molecules that have the same chemical compound, or chemical formula, sorry, but different arrangements of atoms. So I could have 2 different molecules that are C2H4 or something. Actually, no, that's the only one that you could have with that because there's no way to actually rearrange it. But I could have C4H. Let me think here. You would need, how many do you need? 10. Okay, so you could have C4H10, but then have another C4H10 that's a completely different arrangement. Their carbon atoms might be attached in different ways. So we're actually going to do a lab on that this week. But for now, just remember, isomers are two molecules that have the same chemical formula, but different arrangements of their atoms. And the last thing for today, for this video, is what a functional group is. A functional group is something added onto a hydrocarbon that replaces one of its hydrogens. Okay, so the first thing I showed you in the video was this. This right here is two carbons, so it's eth, just like over here. Eth is two carbons. Eth, and it all has single bonds, so it should be ethane, just like we saw before, but there's an oxygen here. This oxygen plus a hydrogen group, because there's to the right of the carbon there's an oxygen and then a hydrogen, that group is called an alcohol group. Every alcohol, different types of alcohol, have an OH added onto them. So this OH basically took the place of the regular hydrogen that would have been there. So instead of being ethane, this is ethanol, because it's an alcohol. So this is ethanol, which you've definitely heard of before. So the full name for that compound is ethanol. You don't really have to know how to name things with their functional groups. That's what you would learn if you went to take a hydrocarbons thing in college, or maybe even in high school. But ethanol is named this way because it's eth and ane and ol for the alcohol. So ethanol is the full name for this. So to really quickly recap, to name something, to name a hydrocarbon, you need to know how many carbons it has, so the number of those, the type of bonds that come between all the different parts, and you got to know if it is saturated or unsaturated. You also want to remember that an isomer is two molecules that have the same chemical formula but different arrangements, and a functional group is something that replaces a hydrogen. And that is it for our video today. In our worksheet for this, you'll be able to practice doing these and naming your own chemical compounds or carbon compounds. So that's all we have.